President and CEO of Shaw & Associates. For over 70 years, Shaw & Associates has been your trusted experts for wealth management, tax, accounting, and payroll. We change lives and inspire true wealth, one person, one family, one business at a time. Shaw & Associates is a wealth management investment firm that specializes in taxes, serving as a fiduciary, putting your interests first. You can find more information or schedule an appointment by calling 530-674-1150 or on the web at shawassociatesinc.com. Shaw & Associates is proud to support community radio.
And we just talked to Mr. Shaw this morning. He's back working where gas is cheap. So sometimes I'll pick a song before a guest comes on.
Yeah.
And so, I was thinking about it, and I had, some different ones. And I ran across, I've got the older music, and I ran across Run Around Sue, which I thought would have been totally inappropriate.
That was popular when I was young, and I was called that a lot.
I bet. And so I think about that, and I've asked people, is there, when they have a name, I'll say, do you know this song? And they'll go, oh, yeah. So I think it
And
sticks.
a boy named Sue.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been through the gamut.
Oh, my gosh.
Good morning.
Yeah. How are you doing, Sue?
I'm great. I'm loving this weather. It's a little chilly this morning.
I know.
But, the rain was wonderful, and everything's springy and green. So, yeah.
So you were telling me, you've told me before, but you live in Loma Rica.
I do.
And so when it gets foggy, is it a deal coming down?
If we get fog, you guys are hopeless. It's usually sunny, and then
it's lower.
You go a mile or so down the road to town, and there it is. You drive right into it. So, my daughter will call me, and she says, well, it's cold and windy and rainy. And I said, well, I'm outside in my shorts and tank top. Sorry, you live down there in the smog and everything, but, come on up here. Yeah, we're just high enough, and so we're the foothills, so we're not.
You do avoid calling us flatlanders, though.
We just call ourselves the hill people, so we don't have to say you're flatlanders. We know what y'all are.
That's funny.
We love you anyway.
But you didn't grow up there.
No. I grew up in Yuba City. My dad's business was there, and so my family's been all over up there because they got here. They bought land from John Sutter, so they were up where Camptonville is now.
Oh yeah.
And then first homestead was close to Hallwood, the bend of the river there, until hydraulic mining kept burying his orchard. This was George Moyer Sr., and so he contacted old John Sutter and said, hey, so he moved to Sutter County, and so he has a road named after him, Moyer Road out there. So, and then he stopped hydraulic mining. He hired Lorenzo Sawyer and said, we got to do away with this, because before that the Yuba was crystal clear, salmon ran all year. So imagine my grandma had two little kids, and the sludge would come down from hydraulic mining 10 feet every year. So for 2 years he tried to hold on to it close to Hallwood, right at the bend of the river, and they said, well, what do? You can't let your kids outside. They might be covered. But imagine burying a whole orchard for 2 years in a row, so you can't grow anything in that stuff.
I took my wife up to Malakoff Diggings. This has been a number of years ago, and it's kind of nice. They got it like a little town. They show you everything. It's really done well.
Great.
But I was absolutely blown away, not just by the pictures, but the displays and stuff they have and the actual gear that they were doing. They literally were washing a mountain away. Yep. It was absolutely ridiculous. And then years ago, I was talking to somebody about it, and they said there was a company out of San Francisco that was willing to dredge our river, which would have made a difference.
Yep.
And so they would have taken it down to its original place. And the agreement, I guess, was that they got to keep the sand because the sand out of the river is good for cement and that, which you can't use. They said, why don't you use ocean sand? Not the same, apparently. And then the other thing was they wanted the rights to any gold they found.
Yeah.
And so it was like, but anyway, it got turned down, and they said it had something to do with environmental. But I'm kind of thinking, wait a minute, you're returning the environment to where it was. You would think that would be a good idea. You know?
Well, you can go up to Sycamore Ranch or to Hammond Grove and just go down to the river and look across, and you can look left and right, and you can see all of the rocks that are left, and those were once underground.
Wow.
And so, and it goes, if you do kayaking or floating, you can start up under Parks Bar Bridge, or Sycamore Ranch has a launch, and you can come all the way down, and that whole stretch, which is like 12 miles, rocks. It's
Wow.
unbelievable. Yeah, they were going to invert it, and try to put it back into the earth, but you're talking mountains of rocks.
Yeah.
Mountains. So if you haven't ever seen it, it's real easy to see from Sycamore or Hammond Grove, because it's just right there. So 20 to 30 feet is
I
what
would
it
be
filled in.
around and I'd see just rocks. Looked like somebody just threw a handful of rocks around, right? And somebody said, well, you do realize that the Butte used to be a volcano.
Yeah.
And
really.
at one point it went off and there's rocks everywhere. And I went, well, that makes sense, right? It kind of looks like a hollowed out volcano,
It's still on the fault line, Fish, and it doesn't go away.
Yeah, Yeah, it'd be my luck. I'd be on one of those Intermountain tours when it decided that, yay, it's time.
You'd be up close and personal to the action.
Yeah.
Anyway, you could report on it the next day. Actually, in the flood of '55, I was very young, and my dad took us to my grandparents in Meridian, and we climbed up on the buttes and watched the valley flood. We just sat up there for hours and watched it flood. There was so much water because we didn't have the dams and all the levees refortified.
Yeah.
And it was amazing to watch your home where you live, the water come down and floods. That's a memory I have. We also could go to the top of levees and our feet were in the water, clear to the top.
Yeah, can you believe that?
Terrifying. Pretty brave kids. We didn't know any better.
No. When you're a kid, you don't. It's like, well, hey, let's go. I remember and I wasn't a kid anymore. I was an adult, had kids. But I lived out in Elk Grove, actually Wilton, and they have the canal. And so somebody said, let's go swim in the canal, which is not a good idea. I'm just telling you.
Just one time.
But we went, we were swimming in the canal. Then you get to the edge of the canal and you go, how do you get out of here? Right? It's like, should have thought about that before we dove off the bridge.
Hindsight is wonderful.
But yeah, I mean, kids and some adults, I mean, they just, if it's a watering hole, I'm going in. Right? It's like, it's cool. And, do you have a pond on your place?
I do. Prairie Creek runs through my property. I have just a little 14-acre place in Loma Rica, and it comes in, and of course it has to flow out, so you can dam it up, but you have to let it go because the people below you are for their animals and stuff. So, yeah, I have flying U rodeo horses on my property this morning, all 10 of them out there.
Do you have fish in that pond?
Yep,
Really?
Cocktail. I'm saying cattails, not cocktails. So, yeah, it's a beautiful little pond. So it's all natural. The deer come down. A couple of does have their babies. And the geese and the mallards are all nesting around there. So I live in a park. I have like 360
you may have
trees.
been born and raised in the city, but apparently there's a little country girl in there.
Oh, yeah. You can't take the country out of the girl. Come on. Well, my family's historical, so, we spend a lot of time outside and enjoying that. So, speaking of history.
Yeah, I guess we ought to get to that.
Yeah. Guess what we're trying to do, Fish? We're trying to preserve our history we're starting an initiative to try to get a museum of history.
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So a generous donors has given us a little location right across the street from you, 412 4th Street, right across from the Hart Building, which this building was the tallest building north of Sacramento at one time. You know that. So you're historical, right?
Yeah, it was called a skyscraper.
It was.
Can you believe that? This is a skyscraper, right? Now we're the third tallest in Marysville. First would be the hospital.
Yes.
And second, the Catholic Church because of the steeple. Which they redid a couple of years ago.
Well, they wear out. They wear out after the building to do the wood and stuff.
And then, we're next. And but it's a great view from here.
Yes, it is. It's gorgeous. So you can see all of Marysville. So talking about the museum and what's going on and the celebration coming up in July, 250 years.
I know.
And Marysville was the third biggest city before California became a state. And the first that happened in Marysville, that people live here, they don't even know about it. So do play. Edward Duplay was a barber. He was the first black mayor west of the Mississippi, and he had a barber shop here. They started this Sweet Vengeance Mine along with other black barbers, and then he finished in Wheatland. He was the mayor there. He's buried in the Pioneer Cemetery. Now, look at the history of that. Black Bart, okay, supposedly, he came here after he got out of prison, and his story, and he's buried at the Pioneer Cemetery. The survivors of the Donner Party, okay. John Sutter, okay, it started, he was here in the 1830s. That's where my family bought land. So Levi Strauss came through here, but he didn't want to barter and nobody would work for him. And so he moved on to San Francisco where he could get labor. The Macy brothers started here and they didn't want to barter with the miners. They said this is the price. So Roland stayed, and the other one went back and started. And the story, of the Red Star is that these were good Quaker boys, okay? And they promised their mom they wouldn't be around wild women and they wouldn't drink or smoke. And so they got on a whaling ship, came to San Francisco. Well, the crew got him a little drunk and they didn't know it. And when he woke up, he had this red tattoo on his left forearm. So not wanting to tell his mother, he said, no, that's what the miners use for good luck, and it's still their logo today. This is the 1850s, Fish. So good story, huh?
That's cool, because I always saw that red star for Macy's, but didn't know what it was. That's interesting. Yeah.
He went back home and started the Macy's chain and Santa Claus and hired the first women to be his managers, started all that. So Phoebe Rideout was the first woman banker in California and became friends with Julia Morgan, the first woman architect in California. We still have 3 of her homes here. And, of course, the auditorium is gone, but we have all that. That grammar school is gone. So we have the first passenger airplane take our baseball team.
We talked about
and
that.
And there's a picture of it flying over this building, so you should know that one. And the Pelton wheel up in Kemptonville. Look, we're still using that, the Colgate power plant. The Pelton wheel is bigger, but he made that for his landlady who had one of those push sewing machines. Mm-hmm. So he built that little thing so the stream could run it for her. That's how it started.
Cool is that?
We're still using it today. So Martha McConnell from Smartsville was the first woman licensed pharmacist in the state of California. All these things you don't know are boga. Okay, it was, first of all, it was for the Grapes of Wrath people that came here. Steinbeck came, okay, the Dust Bowl era. And then in the 40s, it became a concentration camp. And so we have a monument out there. We still have all that. And Klein Bull, who started Olivehurst, okay, he started the first reclamation district in this whole area, and it's still up and running today. He drained all the tules and everything out there so that the Dust Bowl people could pay $2 a month, whatever, and he gave them a lot to build a home so they could stay there. The railroad let them jump on, go up to Roseville, take any of the wooden cars they're taking apart, they'd bring it back here, and that's what they used to build their first houses. Stephen Field, first Supreme Court Justice appointed by Abraham Lincoln, served the longest. His place is still here, and I mentioned Black Bart, the survivors of the Donner Party. And, of course, they're related to the Chimes. The longest-running hardware store, Union Lumber, is still in business here. And the Julia Morgan House, Union Lumber. So those are just a few things that people come here, and they have no idea. They have no idea. All of this stuff. The Bacchae Temple, there are only 2 places left in the world, due to the communist China destroyed them, that have those murals that are in downtown Marysville and Chinatown. So we have so many firsts, and so we're hoping this museum, we're going to call it the Museum of History of Yuba County, and we're getting started. And, of course, the Packard Library was the first free public library west of the Mississippi, a Carnegie Library, and that building's empty now. So
they don't know what they're going to do with that, I guess.
We're just looking at options, okay? And I was speaking to my supervisor, John Messick, and, the Forgotten Warriors Museum is going to become part of this stand down, and Yuba County is helping support that. Mm-hmm. And if we can't get the Packard Library or someplace close, possibly we can put another museum by the Forgotten Warriors Museum. So my uncle Everett Harris was the first pilot shot down from Beale Air Force Base in Italy. And the farmer that found him, he was already passed, found his leather mask, his goggles, and his scarf. And years later, he found out through the internet that he had family living here and sent that to us. And so,
Oh, man.
And that's in the Forgotten Warriors thing, and that's where the Harris Gym is named after him at Beale Air Force Base. And Ned Beale, who came here with Charles Fremont, and took gold from the Yuba River, and to camouflage it, had it made into a ring, which he gave to his wife as an engagement ring, of some of the original gold found in the Yuba River, took it back to Washington, D.C., and showed Polk that there was gold in California. So all of these stories, they're out there, but we need a central place. So we're trying to get, and so we had a history expo, and we invited all the history people to come. It was very well attended, and everybody's enthusiastic. So we just want people to know we're trying. We don't have room for a lot of artifacts yet.
Well, yeah, because that's not nearly big enough to put everything in. But at least you get a sampling and you can rotate it. So at least we have it,
Yeah, we had a donation from John Nicoletti of some images that he had enlarged when he took over the Habitat, and so the county has loaned them to us. And so we're gonna start with displays. We're gonna talk about Ned Beale, and it was Camp Beale first.
Yeah.
It was a tanker to train the tanks for the war, and so. And then it became an Air Force base. And
I hadn't a chance when I was on talk radio to interview a guy out at Sutter County Airport. They called me, said the guy's 100 years old, right? And he was at Beale.
Yeah.
And so I went, well, that'll be interesting. So I go out and his little wife, who's also 100, is sitting out there waiting for him, right? And the guy, I didn't realize that was a prisoner of war camp.
Yes.
That Beale was, and the kind of training. And he was there when it was called Camp Beale. And he just told this great story, right, about it, which, you wouldn't know. You just think, oh, it's an Air Force base. It's like sometimes if we don't find out the roots of where something's from, we really miss out on why it's here.
Well, the whole story, like Ned Beale started out, it was the Navy, but he was in the Marines, which is part of the Navy. Okay,
they don't admit that.
So he was a Navy Marine, okay, and then he was hired to become an Indian agent of California, so Tejon Pass, okay, down there, and that was his fort, and they made him in charge of the Camel Corps of the Army at Tejon Pass, and then he has an Air Force base named after him. So all of those things on one person.
Yeah.
So we're going to do a little bit about his story at the museum so people know about Beale. And the historians at Beale just write about the wing that's there.
Yeah.
And so you have to get all the books from all the historians. But Peggy Ball, like a bouncing ball, her husband was stationed at Beale, and so she wrote the history and interviewed these people when she was there. It's called Pebbles in the Stream. And there's a few still out there. She had a limited edition. But she tells about and shows pictures of the tanks. And there was a town. Spencerville was a town, a real town. And so all of these things. And Round Table was out there. And Round Tent was out there. Cabbage Patch was out there. 2 freed slaves started growing cabbage on the way. It was just a trail that went from Marysville up to the goldfields. And so it's called Cabbage Patch. And so they were set free after they got gold for their master.
Later, they made dolls out of them.
Cabbage Patch. They probably wish they'd thought of that. Instead of growing cabbage, probably would have been better.
Every little kid would have had them, right?
But David Parks and the things that he did, and his sons, Yuba River Parks. I have a picture of when he got married up there. He came here, made his fortune, and went on. Jonas Speck found gold before James Marshall did, but he didn't tell anybody about that. So
probably smart.
Very smart. And when the Donner Party, before they were rescued and stuff, the people that here, Michael Nye and Cordova and Kovalut, they just gave the Indians little tin cups, and because the Indians had no use for the gold, and that placer gold was everywhere in our rivers and our creeks. So they'd give them a cup, and they'd say, go fill this up, and then we'll give you some coffee or some sugar or some beads or some calico material. So they pretty much picked up all the placer gold even before it. The gold rush in the 50s, the 49s and 50s. So they came into some white gold. But wouldn't it be exciting just to walk by a stream and see all this gold? And the Indians had no use for it so they just called it yellow rock.
Well, you know, one of the things about AI is they're able to now tell these stories.
Yes.
So it's literally, you can see a video, right, of it. And I love that there is an audio portion to history. You know, I've had history books that were boring.
Me too.
And history teachers that were boring. And then I've had some that brought it to life. I had a history teacher when I was in college, and everybody said, don't take that professor, he's hard. And so I took him over summer school. He was so good, Sue. He told you about the landscape during that historical event, what was going on, why it took place. It was just, to me, it was, so I ended up taking him for both history classes I needed, and just a great history teacher. So I understand his tests were hard. You had to listen.
Yeah, but you learned and you remembered.
Oh, it was amazing. And the guy just knew what he was doing. And I think sometimes we don't realize that you have an opportunity here in our area because you have people, yourself and others, Chuck Smith, who love the history of this area. They love it. They understand it. They see what came out of it. So having a museum, that's huge.
And oral history and saving that because this is people go. And speaking of professors, we are very blessed in our area. Professor David Rubialis does California history as his specialty. And he's one of those people that you live the history when he gives presentations and stuff. And did you know that Cordova had one journal, the first part of his life, but there was a second one that was in Old German. And because he was German from the same town as Sutter. And so when he came here, he didn't have that second one done. And so Professor Rubialis, working with a donor, Ned Speaker from Loma Rica, they have translated that. And so it should be out pretty soon. Tells about the rest of his life and the Indians that left Yuba City and the Yuba Indian tribe because Sutter was so cruel to them, and they came over Cordova's side, and so they stayed here and worked for Cordova, cattling and growing grain and stuff like that. So that book hopefully is finished pretty soon and translated so we can read the rest of the early, because he was the first settler. Theodore Corder was the first settler here before.
My daughter-in-law is the principal of that school.
Of Cordova School?
Yeah.
I'll be darned. Yeah,
I wonder if Lizzie, she knows that history. She probably does.
Give her my number.
I should,
And the first reform school in Northern California was just right out where Highway 70 is now. It was just a road up to the gold fields then. So, and we have the mule
Just a disclaimer: I did not go to that school. I went to one back east.
Well, it's and Stuart Gilchrist, who's on our city council, did a rendering of what it looked like, and so that's where Sodato's peach orchards are now, where it was. So it's huge.
So the new museum.
Yes.
When do you actually start?
We've already started.
Okay.
We meet on the third Wednesday at 5:30. We're trying to meet there. We've been meeting at different things, and so working on getting a website up. This happens really fast, and sometimes we got the cart before the horse sometimes. So we're catching up and everything, and we have a board. We're doing business plan. We have a nonprofit, and so everything is happening. And so just keep reading, look on Facebook and stuff, and come and join us if you have suggestions or if you have stories or things. The History Commission is one of the community partners because we have most of the Arcadia authors are on the commission, and they wrote the history of the community. So people are so interested and so helpful in our community partners. So we haven't started fundraising yet, so we're trying to get that location. But we have a year right across the street from you, so I'll be seeing you.
Yeah.
I'll be seeing you.
Well, people are always asking me, what goes on in the Hart Building?
Yeah.
And some people have even thought it's vacant. It's far from vacant, right? And so now I'm trying to remember her name. I don't know why it slips my mind. She said she does tours.
Judy Mann.
Judy. And so I saw Judy. She said, Fish, can you get me in the Hart Building? I said, absolutely. So they could come in and see it. Now, for years, it was a software company and had the bulk of it. And then a couple of years back, they moved out. Well, when they moved out of the third floor, I grabbed it. And then when they moved out of the fourth floor, I grabbed that. So I have the fourth, third, and half of the first, and then KMYC radios on the second. And the rest of it is still open, but the seventh floor is an apartment. I mean, just really nice. Seventh floor. The eighth floor you have to walk up to, and it's like a boardroom. It's a big open room with the windows you see on the top of the building so you can look out. And so it's just, it's really a great building. I mean, we like it. We were grateful that the owner let us in here because we needed a place to put our tower, our antenna.
Right.
And so we went to the city, and the city said, if you take the old antenna down, which I really wonder what that was for, maybe somebody knows, but we took that down, put ours up, and it just has been perfect for us. Although almost everything we do is internet. Used to be you need an antenna, but
So you're just moving on up, are you there?
Well, now we got TV, and that was the goal, to bring media to the area that like this, we can be able to talk about the things that are going on, the historic things, and then something new. So you have the history now moving in a new building, right? But it's the changes that occur, and it's our mandate from the FCC is to educate and inform. We're like public radio, even though we're privately supported by businesses and people that contribute because we're a 501c3. It's like we just love being able to do that. And being in Marysville was kind of cool. We could have been in Yuba City. We're licensed to Yuba City, but we can be within 10 miles of our license. But honestly, there wasn't any place in Yuba City that would be like this.
Well, one thing you can do that we've been trying to work with the city is putting QR codes. So even our local residents or kids go by, you can take your smartphone and your video can tell them about this building, about what you're doing, the services available, go to this website or something. And they're so inexpensive. So we're working on that, and maybe that's something that we can partner with you guys, because you might have the technology to do the videos and stuff and put those.
We do have video technology.
I'm sure you do. So you'll
Sue,
have to
I
arrange
would
a
talk
tour.
to you for hours.
Oh,
You know
so-
that, right? We just we didn't even get to the history. We're talking
Yes, we
about
did.
your place up in the foothills, right?
That's okay. We got the first, and hopefully this celebration coming up in July, that's maybe we have a historical part of that. We've been trying to see how we could fit in and do some local history with that.
That would be
not
great.
National, but we weren't here, but our Native Americans were here. So maybe there'd be some part we could portray in that. So,
Well, Sue, thanks for coming on. I'm glad that you're willing to do this every month, and we get to,
thank you.
And I'm glad that something happened for the history to be here. I'm glad to hear that the Museum of Forgotten Warriors, that got picked up, because, history matters, whether people believe it or not. I got invited out there, and I'm walking through, and I'm thinking, gosh, I don't see the patch from the unit I was with. It was an Intel unit. I'm walking out the door, and the patch was stapled to the door frame. And I told my wife, because we were in there together, I said, look, there it is, right? I might have to donate my stuff, But, yeah, I love it that we have that. And then to have one right here, on 4th Street.
Awesome, huh?
Yeah, this is great stuff.
Thanks for your support, Ben.
All right, thanks. And I'm just telling you, that guy out there at your pond fishing is not me. I don't know who that is. It's called trespassing. Thanks, Sue.
This community interview is made possible by Shaw and Associates.
I'm Dave Shaw, president